If you own land and you're thinking about selling, the type of buyer you attract directly affects how your property is valued and how a deal comes together. A builder, a developer, and an investor can all look at the exact same property and come up with very different numbers. Not because one of them is wrong, but because they're often solving for different things at different stages of the same process. My name is Zener with Metro Land Pro. I help landowners understand their property and how to unlock its value. I'm licensed in Oregon and assist sellers nationwide. In this video, I'm going to walk you through the difference between builders, developers, and investors, how each one looks at your property, and how that affects what your land is worth. First, you've got builders. Builders typically come with a defined plan, a known product, and a clear path to execution. That makes their deals feel cleaner, more predictable, and more straightforward to negotiate. They generally prefer land that is closer to being build ready, but most builders are constantly buying land at different stages of the process, including raw land as a part of their ongoing pipeline. What builders are focused on is straightforward. What can they build? What will it cost? And does it fit the product they already know how to execute? Because of that, builders usually aren't the group most likely to stretch for speculative upside. They want the numbers to work within a fairly defined plan, and when they do, you get a deal that is easier to underwrite on both sides. Next, you've got developers. Where builders typically start with a known product and work backward to figure out if the land fits, developers often start with the land and work forward to figure out what it could support. They're not always locked in to a specific outcome going in. They're taking the property through a process of figuring out what it can support, and in some cases, what it could become if something about it is changed or improved. That might mean rezoning, annexation, a more intensive site plan, or a longer entitlement process. Builders do some of this too. The difference is usually how open-ended that process is and how much the end product can shift based on what gets uncovered along the way. They're asking the same core questions builders are, but often with more uncertainty built into the answers. They're not always starting with a fixed outcome, but they are constantly testing what the end result could realistically be and whether the deal supports it. That's why a developer can sometimes offer more than a builder on the same property. But they can also offer less depending on how much risk, time, and uncertainty they see in the deal. The cleanest way to think about it, builders are underwriting to a product they already know how to build. Developers are underwriting to a future state they still have to create. There's overlap, but that's the distinction that tends to hold. Then you've got investors. Investors aren't usually trying to maximize the site immediately. They're often buying to hold, to resell later, or to solve a problem that's keeping other buyers away, like clearing a title issue, fixing access, or assembling the property with neighboring parcels to create more value before reselling. Or it might mean simply waiting for demand to shift, for zoning to change, or for the market to catch up to what the land could eventually be worth. Because of that, investors' offers tend to be more conservative and more focused on protecting the downside. They want room in the deal. That's not always a bad thing for a seller. If your property has uncertainty, limited access, site complications, or something that makes it hard for a builder or developer to underwrite cleanly, an investor may be the most realistic buyer. Not the fallback, the right fit. And in some cases, funds, family offices, or buyers doing 1031 exchanges, investors can be surprisingly competitive on price for the right property. How to think about it. The same property can look like 3 different opportunities depending on who is looking at it. A clean subdivision to one buyer, a a rezoning play to another, and a hold investment to someone else. So it's less about choosing a buyer type and more about understanding what your property is and most likely to attract. If the property has a clear path and fits a builder's product, a builder may be your strongest fit. If the property has real upside, but it takes time, approvals, and risk to unlock it, a developer may see the most value. If the property has complications or needs a more patient approach, an investor may be the most realistic. Because the same property can attract all three types, and you often won't know which one offers the most until you actually see it. This is why broad exposure matters. Value is not just about the land itself, it's about who's looking at it and what they believe they can do with it, and how much risk they're willing to take on. If you're not sure what type of buyer your property is most likely to attract, or you want help understanding how to position it properly, reach out. I help landowners understand their property, identify the right buyer pool, and structure deals that have the best chance of closing. You can email me at evan@metrolandpro.com or visit metrolandpro.com. And if this was helpful, please like and subscribe. It helps the channel grow and it helps more landowners find this content. Thank you.